Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We're experiencing some unexpected turbulence. Please return to your seats and fasten your seatbelts immediately. Sarah Mitchell gripped the galley counter as the Gulfstream G650 shuddered violently. 26 years old, 5 months into her flight attendant career, and this was supposed to be the easy gig. Private jets, wealthy passengers, smooth flights. Not this nightmare at 35,000 feet over the Midwest on a gray October afternoon. "Miss Mitchell, are you all right?" Christine Palmer, the senior flight attendant, steadied herself against the bulkhead. Her perfectly styled blonde hair hadn't moved an inch despite the aircraft pitching like a ship in a storm. "I'm fine," Sarah lied, her knuckles white. Through the cabin doorway she could see their only passengers, James Thornton, the reclusive tech billionaire whose face rarely graced magazine covers anymore, and his 9-year-old son, Ethan. The plane dropped suddenly. Sarah's stomach lurched. A muffled cry came from the main cabin. "The boy," Christine said sharply. "He's panicking again. 3rd time this flight. Mr. Thornton specifically requested we handle any situations with Ethan delicately, but nothing works. You try." Sarah moved through the narrow aisle, her heart pounding. She'd read the confidential passenger briefing before takeoff. Ethan Thornton, age 9, blind and nonverbal. Medical condition, congenital rubella syndrome. Father is extremely protective. Do not make sudden movements or loud noises around the child. The cabin was all cream leather and polished wood, the kind of luxury Sarah had only seen in movies before taking this job. But right now, it felt like a coffin rattling through the sky. James Thornton sat rigid in his seat, his jaw clenched. He was younger than she'd expected, maybe 40, with dark hair graying at the temples and the kind of face that would have been handsome if it weren't carved from stone. His $3,000 suit was rumpled, his tie loosened, his hands rested awkwardly on his son's shoulders. Ethan was rocking violently, his small body trembling. His hands flailed in the air, fingers spread wide, searching for something, anything, to anchor himself to reality. Behind his closed eyelids, Sarah could see his eyes moving frantically. Silent tears streamed down his cheeks. "I've tried everything," James said without looking up. His voice was hoarse. "He can't hear me explain what's happening. He can't see my face. He's trapped inside his fear, and I can't—" His voice cracked. "I can't reach him." The plane shook again. Ethan's silent scream, mouth open, no sound emerging, sent chills down Sarah's spine. Christine hovered behind Sarah. "We should probably just let Mr. Thornton handle it. Company policy states—" "Please," James interrupted, his gray eyes finally lifting to meet Sarah's. There was desperation there, raw and unfiltered. "If you have any ideas, I'm listening. Nothing I do helps anymore." Sarah's mind raced back 3 years. Her brother Danny, 19 years old, blind since birth. The car accident. His hospital room. The way his hands had frantically searched the air, terrified and alone. Unable to see the doctors. Unable to call for help after the ventilator tube made speech impossible. She'd learned then. Had to learn. "May I?" Sarah gestured toward Ethan. James hesitated, then nodded slowly. Sarah knelt beside the boy's seat, bringing herself to his level. She could smell his fear. Sharp, acidic. The plane bucked again and Ethan's rocking intensified. Slowly, carefully, Sarah reached out and placed her right hand palm down on the armrest, about 6 inches from Ethan's frantically moving fingers. She didn't touch him. Not yet. That would be an invasion, a shock to his already overwhelmed system. She waited. Ethan's left hand swept through the air and brushed against her fingers. He froze. His rocking stopped. Sarah kept her hand perfectly still, letting him explore. His small fingers traced over her knuckles, her wrist, mapping her presence. Then, with infinite gentleness, she turned her hand over and let his palm rest against hers. She began spelling into his hand using the manual tactile alphabet, the deafblind alphabet she'd learned during those terrible months with Danny. S-A-F-E. Ethan's breathing stuttered. P-L-A-N-E-B-U-M-P-Y. S-O-O-N-S-M-O-O-T-H. His fingers tightened around hers. Y-O-U-A-R-E-S-A-F-E. The plane leveled out slightly. Captain Morrison's voice crackled through the intercom. "Apologies, folks. We're climbing to 41,000 to get above this weather system. Should be smooth sailing in about 2 minutes." Sarah continued spelling into Ethan's palm. D-A-D-H-E-R-E. I-H-E-R-E. Y-O-U-N-O-T-A-L-O-N-E. Ethan's other hand reached up and touched Sarah's face. His fingers traced her features, forehead, nose, cheeks, chin. reading her the only way he could. Then his hands moved to her hair, feeling the ponytail, the texture. He was smiling. Sarah looked up at James Thornton and found him staring at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Shock? Awe? Something deeper? How? He whispered. How did you do that? Manual tactile alphabet, Sarah said quietly, still holding Ethan's hand. It's used by deaf-blind people. You spell words letter by letter into their palm. My brother was... She paused. My brother was blind and lost his ability to speak temporarily after an accident. I learned to communicate with him this way. Was? James caught the past tense. He died 2 years ago. Sarah's voice remained steady, though the words still hurt. Complications from the accident. The plane finally smoothed out. Ethan leaned back in his seat, his hand still holding Sarah's, his breathing calm, and even now. Outside the windows, the sky was clearing, the dark storm clouds falling away below them. Christine appeared at Sarah's shoulder. Miss Mitchell, we need you back in the galley. I'm sure Mr. Thornton can... No. James's voice was firm. She stays with Ethan for the rest of the flight. Christine's perfectly plucked eyebrows rose. Sir, that's highly irregular. Company protocol requires... I don't care about protocol. James pulled out his phone. I'm calling your CEO right now. Miss Mitchell will attend to my son exclusively. Is that clear? Of course, Mr. Thornton. Christine's smile was tight. She shot Sarah a look that promised a conversation later, then retreated. Sarah settled into the seat across from Ethan, their hands still connected. She spelled WHATISYOURNAME. Ethan's free hand moved to her palm, and slowly, carefully, he spelled back ETHAN. Sarah's heart soared. He knew the alphabet. He could communicate. He just needed someone who spoke his language. NICETOMEETYOUETHAN. IMSARAH. Ethan spelled YOUSMELLLIKEVANILLA. Sarah laughed softly. Her shampoo. Of course he'd notice. He says I smell like vanilla, she told James. For the first time since she'd boarded this plane, James Thornton smiled. It transformed his entire face, cracking through the ice. He has an incredible sense of smell, and he's right. You do. The rest of the flight passed in a blur. Sarah and Ethan communicated continuously, his small hands spelling questions, her hands answering. He wanted to know everything about her. What color was her hair? How tall was she? Did she have a dog? What was her favorite food? She learned about him too. He loved music, especially Beethoven. He hated broccoli. He had a cat named Whiskers, who slept on his bed every night. His favorite thing in the world was when his dad read him stories, with Ethan's hands resting on his father's throat to feel the vibrations of his voice. James watched them interact with an intensity that made Sarah hyper-aware of his presence. Several times she glanced up to find him staring, not at his son, but at her, not in a creepy way, more like he was seeing something impossible, something he'd stopped believing in. When Captain Morrison announced their descent into Teterboro Airport in New Jersey, Sarah felt Ethan's grip tighten with anxiety. WHEREYOUGO, he spelled urgently. IWORKONPLANE, Sarah replied. IHAVETOSTAYWITHPLANE. Ethan's face crumpled. His hands spelled frantically. NONONOSTAYWITHME. Ethan's asking me to stay with him, Sarah told James. I explained that I work on the plane, but give me your full name and date of birth, James interrupted, pulling out his phone again. I'm sorry. Your information, now. His tone brooked no argument. Sarah Elizabeth Mitchell, March 15th, 1999. James typed rapidly. Social security number? Sarah rattled it off, confused. What was happening? Current address? Mr. Thornton, I don't understand. Please, Miss Mitchell. He looked up from his phone, and that desperation was back in his eyes. Just answer the question. She gave him her address, a cramped studio in Queens that smelled like mildew and cost most of her paycheck. James made a call. Robert, it's me. I need a complete background check immediately. Sarah Elizabeth Mitchell. He rattled off the information Sarah had just provided. I need it in 3 hours. Yes, I know it's Sunday. Triple the usual fee. Thanks. He ended the call and looked at Sarah. I want to offer you a position. A position? As Ethan's companion, his translator, his. James struggled for words. His bridge to the world. I've spent 9 years trying to reach my son, trying to give him everything he needs. I've hired specialists. therapists, tutors. None of them have connected with him the way you just did in 30 minutes. Sarah's mouth went dry. Mr. Thornton, I appreciate the offer, but I have a job. I have responsibilities. I'll pay you $300,000 a year. The number hit her like a physical blow. Sarah made $42,000 as a flight attendant. Her student loans from her 2 years at community college before she'd had to drop out to take care of Danny were crushing her. She was 3 months behind on rent. Last week she'd had to choose between groceries and her electric bill. $300,000. That's... Sarah couldn't form words. Plus full medical coverage, dental vision, room and board at my estate in Greenwich, Connecticut. 4 weeks paid vacation. Use of the family vehicles. James leaned forward. Miss Mitchell, I'm not asking you to abandon your life. I'm asking you to save my sons. The plane touched down, the wheels chirping against the runway. Ethan spelled into Sarah's palm, Pleasestay. I need time to think, Sarah managed. You have until we reach the terminal. James's phone buzzed. He glanced at it. My head of security is pulling your employment records now. By the time we park, I'll know everything about you. If you're clean, and I have no reason to believe you're not, the offer stands. But I need an answer today. Now. Sarah looked down at Ethan's small hand in hers, at his hopeful, tear-stained face turned toward her, unable to see but feeling everything. She thought about her studio apartment with its leaking ceiling and broken heating, about Christine's condescending smirks, about the mounting pile of bills on her tiny kitchen counter, about Danny who died alone in that hospital because she'd been at work, unable to afford to take time off. If I say yes, Sarah said slowly, what exactly would this job entail? James exhaled, and she realized he'd been holding his breath. You'd live in the west wing of our home. Your primary responsibility would be facilitating Ethan's communication. With me, with his tutors, with anyone he needs to interact with. You'd help him navigate the world, teach him, protect him. Protect him from what? Something dark flickered across James's face. The world is not kind to vulnerable people, Miss Mitchell. I have enemies, business rivals, people who would exploit any weakness they perceive in me or my family. Ethan's condition makes him a target. A chill ran down Sarah's spine. This wasn't just a caregiving position. This was something more complicated. The plane rolled to a stop. Through the windows, Sarah could see a black Mercedes S-Class waiting on the tarmac, along with 2 large men in dark suits. James's phone buzzed again. He read the screen, then looked at Sarah with those piercing gray eyes. Background check came back. You're clear. Exemplary, actually. 2 years community college. Excellent grades until you had to drop out to care for your brother. No criminal record. No debts except student loans and medical bills. You've been supporting yourself since you were 24. He paused. You've had a hard life, Miss Mitchell. That's not your business, Sarah said quietly. It is if you're going to be living under my roof caring for my son. Ethan tugged Sarah's hand, spelling WHATHAPPENING YOURDADASKEDMETOWORKWITHYOU. Sarah spelled back IMTHINKING PLEASE. Ethan spelled ILIKEYOU NOBODYELSETALKSLIKEYOU. Sarah looked at James. If I do this, I need some conditions. Name them. I want it in writing, contract, legal. I want to be able to leave if I'm uncomfortable or if this arrangement doesn't work. I want 2 weeks' notice before termination, and I want the same courtesy extended to you. If I quit or you fire me, we both give 2 weeks. Done. What else? I want my student loans paid off, and the medical debt for my brother's final hospitalization. $47,000 total. James didn't blink. I'll have my attorneys draw up the contract tonight. The debts will be paid by Wednesday. Sarah's heart hammered. This was insane. She was actually considering this. One more thing, she said. I want to know what I'm walking into. You mentioned enemies, threats. I need to understand what kind of danger we're talking about. James glanced at his son, then back at Sarah. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. 3 months ago, someone tried to kidnap Ethan from his school. We stopped them, but we never found out who was behind it. Since then, I've kept him home. Private tutors, limited exposure. I'm trying to give him a normal life, but he ran a hand through his hair. But I'm failing. He's lonely, isolated. He needs more than I can give him. He needs you. The weight of it settled on Sarah's shoulders. This wasn't just a job. This was a life, possibly a dangerous one, but $300,000. Her debts paid. A chance to use everything she'd learned with Danny to help another person. A chance to matter. "I'll do it," Sarah heard herself say. "I'll take the job." James Thornton's expression transformed. Relief, gratitude, and something else, something that looked almost like hope, flooded his features. Ethan spelled into her palm, Youstay, Y-E-S. Sarah spelled back, I-S-T-A-Y. Ethan threw his arms around her, his small body trembling with joy. Sarah held him, this boy she'd known for less than an hour, and wondered what the hell she'd just agreed to. As they exited the plane, the November wind cutting through Sarah's thin uniform, she caught sight of her reflection in the Mercedes's tinted window. She looked small, scared, completely out of her depth. Behind her, James placed a hand briefly on her shoulder. "Thank you," he said simply. "You have no idea what this means." But as they drove away from the airport, heading toward a life of wealth and luxury Sarah had never imagined, she couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just made a deal she didn't fully understand. And somewhere in the back of her mind, a small voice whispered, "You should have asked more questions." The Mercedes glided through the iron gates of the Thornton estate, just as twilight painted the Connecticut sky in shades of amber and violet. Sarah pressed her face against the window, her breath fogging the glass. "Jesus," she whispered. The driveway stretched for what looked like half a mile, lined with perfectly manicured hedges and ancient oak trees whose bare November branches clawed at the darkening sky. The mansion itself emerged from the landscape like something out of a Gothic novel, all gray stone, towering columns, and mullioned windows that glowed with warm light from within. 18 bedrooms, 23 bathrooms, indoor pool, home theater, private gym, and a library with over 10,000 books, James said from beside her. His tone was matter-of-fact, as if he were describing a modest suburban home. "Most of it is empty. Ethan and I use maybe 10% of the space." Ethan sat between them, his hand still clutching Sarah's. He'd fallen asleep about 20 minutes into the drive, his head resting against her shoulder, his breathing soft and even. Sarah had kept spelling into his palm even as he dozed, gentle reassurances. STILLHERE, SAFE, SLEEP. "How long have you lived here?" Sarah asked. "Built it 7 years ago, right after my wife died." James's voice flattened on the last word. Catherine wanted something grand, a legacy for Ethan. She never got to see it finished. Sarah wanted to ask more, but the car stopped in front of massive double doors. 2 security guards appeared, the same men she'd seen at the airport. Both were built like linebackers, with earpieces and expressions that revealed nothing. "Marcus and Deshawn," James introduced them, head of security and second in command. "They live in the guest house on the property. You'll see them around." Marcus, a black man in his early 40s with graying temples and sharp eyes, opened Sarah's door. "Welcome, Miss Mitchell. We've prepared the West Wing for you." "Thank you," Sarah said, carefully shifting Ethan so she could exit without waking him. But the movement roused him anyway. His hands immediately reached for her face, confirming her presence, then spelled WHEREHOME, Sarah spelled back. YOURHOME. Ethan's expression grew troubled. He spelled rapidly, NOTHOME, TOOBIG, TOOEMPTY. Sarah's heart cracked a little. She looked at James, who'd come around to their side of the car. "He says it's too big and too empty." Something painful flickered across James's face. "I know," he said quietly. "I've tried to make it feel warmer. Brought in interior designers, child psychologists. Nothing works, maybe." He hesitated. "Maybe you'll have better luck." Inside, the foyer was enormous, marble floors, a crystal chandelier that probably cost more than Sarah's entire year's salary, a sweeping staircase that split into 2 directions on the second floor. Everything was pristine, perfect, and utterly sterile, like a museum, not a home. A woman in her 60s appeared from a side hallway. She had silver hair pulled into a tight bun and wore a crisp gray dress that screamed, "Head housekeeper." "Mrs. Hemsworth," James said. "This is Sarah Mitchell. She'll be living in the West Wing, working with Ethan. Please make sure she has everything she needs." Mrs. Hemsworth's expression was neutral, but Sarah caught the quick assessment in her eyes, the judgment of her rumpled flight attendant uniform, her scuffed shoes, her ponytail coming loose after the long day. "Of course, Mr. Thornton. I've prepared the rose suite as instructed." She turned to Sarah with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "If you'll follow me, Miss Mitchell." "Wait," Sarah said. She looked down at Ethan, whose hand was gripping hers with increasing tightness. "Can I get him settled first? I think he needs—" "That won't be necessary," Mrs. Hemsworth interrupted smoothly. "Mr. Thornton handles Ethan's bedtime routine himself. You must be exhausted after your flight. Let me show you to your quarters." Ethan's hand spelled frantically, DONTGOSTAY. "He wants me to stay with him," Sarah told James. James knelt beside his son, placing his hands over Ethan's. Sarah watched as he attempted to communicate through touch, pressing, tapping, trying to convey meaning. But it was clumsy, inefficient. Ethan pulled away, frustrated, and reached again for Sarah. "Miss Mitchell just arrived," James said aloud, though Ethan couldn't hear him. "She needs to rest. I'll put you to bed tonight, like always." But Ethan was shaking his head violently, his hands flailing. SARAH. WANT. SARAH. Sarah crouched down. "Ethan, I'm not leaving. I'll be here in the morning, I promise." She spelled each word carefully. ISLEEPHERENOW. THISMYHOMETOO. ILLSEEYOUWHENSUNCOMESUP. Ethan's agitation decreased slightly. He spelled PROMISE. PROMISE, Sarah confirmed. Reluctantly, Ethan let James take his hand. As they headed toward the east wing, Ethan kept turning back, his face toward where he'd last sensed Sarah's presence. Mrs. Hemsworth led Sarah in the opposite direction, through corridors lined with paintings that probably cost more than most houses. "The West Wing is primarily guest quarters," she explained in a clipped tone, "though we rarely have guests. Mr. Thornton prefers his privacy." They climbed a smaller staircase to the second floor. "You'll find this wing quite comfortable. Private bathroom, sitting area, walk-in closet. Meals are served at 7, noon, and 6 in the formal dining room, though Mr. Thornton often takes his meals in his study." She opened a door, and Sarah stepped into a suite that was larger than her entire queen's apartment. The bedroom was decorated in shades of cream and rose gold, with a 4-poster bed that looked like something out of a fairy tale. French doors opened onto a balcony overlooking the grounds. The bathroom had a clawfoot tub, a separate shower with multiple heads and marble countertops. "Your belongings from your apartment will be collected tomorrow," Mrs. Hemsworth said. "Mr. Thornton's assistant will handle terminating your lease and forwarding any mail. In the meantime, you'll find appropriate clothing in the closet. Business casual for daily wear, formal attire for any events Mr. Thornton might require you to attend." Sarah turned. "You bought me clothes? Already?" "Mr. Thornton called ahead during the drive. We estimated your size based on your employee file photo." Mrs. Hemsworth opened the closet, revealing racks of clothing. Slacks, blouses, sweaters, dresses, all in Sarah's size. "If anything doesn't fit, let me know by morning and we'll have replacements by noon." Sarah's head spun. This is too much. This is how Mr. Thornton operates, Miss Mitchell. Efficiently. Thoroughly." Mrs. Hemsworth moved toward the door. "Breakfast is at 7 sharp. Don't be late. Mr. Thornton has a meeting at 8:30 and will need you with Ethan by then." After she left, Sarah sank onto the bed. The mattress was so soft she felt like she was floating. Through the windows she could see the estate's grounds, gardens, a greenhouse, what looked like a tennis court in the distance. Security lights illuminated paths through the property. Her phone buzzed. A text from Christine. "Call me ASAP. What the hell happened on that flight?" Sarah deleted it. She'd deal with her old life later. Another text, this one from an unknown number. "This is James. My private cell. Call if you need anything tonight. And thank you again." Sarah stared at the message. James Thornton had given her his personal number. The billionaire who probably had 100 assistants to field calls had given her direct access to him. She stripped off her uniform and stood under the shower for 20 minutes, letting water pressure that could strip paint wash away the grime and confusion of the day. By the time she emerged, wrapped in a towel softer than anything she'd ever owned, exhaustion had settled into her bones. She fell into bed and was asleep in seconds. The screaming woke her at 2:47 a.m. Sarah bolted upright, heart hammering. The sound was distant but unmistakable, a child's terrified shriek over and over. "Ethan." She grabbed a robe from the closet and ran barefoot into the hallway. The West Wing was dark, illuminated only by emergency lighting near the floor. She followed the screams toward the East Wing, her feet silent on the plush carpet. James's voice echoed through the halls. "Ethan, please, you're safe. It's just a nightmare." Sarah burst into what had to be Ethan's room. A massive space decorated in blues and greens with tactile toys on shelves, a keyboard in one corner, and a bed shaped like a race car. Ethan was thrashing in the bed, his face contorted in terror, his mouth open in those awful silent screams. James held him, trying to restrain him without hurting him, but Ethan was fighting with the strength of pure panic. "Let me," Sarah said. James looked up, his face haggard. "I've tried everything. He gets these night terrors. The doctors say it's common with his condition. The sensory overload during the day manifesting as..." Sarah climbed onto the bed and placed her hands firmly on Ethan's, cutting through his father's explanation. She spelled ETHAN SARAHHERE YOUSAFE JUSTDREAM NOTREAL. Ethan's thrashing slowed. His hands clutched hers desperately. BADDREAM, he spelled back, his movements jerky with residual fear. MONSTERS CHASINGME CANTRUN CANTSEE NOMONSTERS, Sarah spelled firmly. IMHERE DADHERE YOUSAFE. She kept spelling nonsense words, comforting phrases, anything to ground him in reality. Gradually, Ethan's breathing evened out. His grip on her hands loosened. His head found her shoulder, and he nestled against her like she was a life raft in a storm. James sat back against the headboard, running both hands through his disheveled hair. He wore only pajama pants, and Sarah couldn't help noticing the defined muscles of his chest and arms, the body of someone who spent time in that private gym he'd mentioned. "How did you do that?" he asked quietly. "I've been trying to manage his night terrors for months. Nothing works. I just have to hold him until he exhausts himself. My brother had them too. After the accident." Sarah kept one hand connected to Ethan's, maintaining that lifeline. "The neurologist explained that when you're deafblind, your brain processes trauma differently. The nightmares are more intense because you can't orient yourself when you wake up. Everything is darkness and silence. You need an anchor to reality, a specific recognizable touch. You learned all this taking care of your brother. I learned a lot of things taking care of Danny." Sarah looked down at Ethan, who was breathing deeply now, on the edge of sleep. "Things I never wanted to learn but couldn't avoid." "How old was he when he died?" 21. Pneumonia. His immune system was compromised from the accident injuries. Sarah's voice remained steady, clinical. She'd told this story enough times that it no longer made her cry. "He went fast. 3 days from diagnosis to the end. I'm sorry. Don't be. He would have hated prolonged suffering." Sarah shifted, trying to ease her cramping leg without disturbing Ethan. "He was the brave one in our family. I was just doing what he needed." James was quiet for a moment. Then, "What happened to your parents?" "The background check mentioned you've been on your own since 24. Mom died when I was 17. Cancer. Dad checked out emotionally after that. Remarried within a year. Moved to Arizona with his new wife. We don't talk." Sarah traced absent patterns on Ethan's hand. "It was just me and Danny for a long time, until it was just me. That's why you said yes today, to this job." "Partially." Sarah met his eyes. "Also because I need the money. Let's not pretend this is pure altruism. You're paying me an obscene amount to do something I'm good at. That's a transaction, Mr. Thornton, not charity." "James," he corrected. "If you're going to live here, work this closely with my son, you should call me James." "James?" Sarah repeated. The name felt strange on her tongue, too intimate. Ethan stirred, spelling drowsily. SARAHSTAYYES. ISTAYUNTILYOUSLEEP. SLEEPHERE. Ethan spelled hopefully. Sarah looked at James. "He's asking if I'll sleep here, in his room." James's jaw tightened. He's never asked that before. He's always been adamant about sleeping alone. Probably because he's never had someone who could communicate with him in the middle of the night. Sarah shifted again. "I can stay on the floor if the bed is big enough for both of you." James stood, his movement stiff. "I'll get you a pillow." He returned with pillows and an extra blanket, his face carefully neutral. "I'll be across the hall if you need anything. My door is always open when Ethan might need me." After he left, Sarah settled in beside Ethan, keeping her hand connected to his. The boy immediately curled against her side, one hand resting on her arm, monitoring her presence even in sleep. Sarah stared at the ceiling, at the glow in the dark stars someone had stuck up there. A futile gesture for a child who couldn't see them. But maybe Ethan knew they were there anyway. Maybe someone had told him. This house was full of those kinds of contradictions. Enormous wealth but profound loneliness. Every luxury except the one thing Ethan needed most: connection. What the hell had she gotten herself into? Outside, she heard footsteps in the hallway. Security guards on patrol. This wasn't just a home. It was a fortress. And somewhere inside it, people were planning something. Waiting for something. Sarah thought about James's words. Someone tried to kidnap Ethan 3 months ago. Who? Why? And would they try again? Sarah woke to fingers spelling on her palm. Hungry. Pale November sunlight filtered through Ethan's curtains. The bedside clock read 6:43 a.m. She'd slept in a strange bed, in a mansion that could house 50 people with a child she'd known for less than 24 hours, and somehow she'd slept better than she had in months. Goodmorning, Sarah spelled back. Weeatbreakfaston. Ethan sat up, his dark hair sticking up at odd angles. He looked so much like his father. The same strong jawline, the same serious expression. But where James's face was carved from granite, Ethan still had the softness of childhood. He reached for Sarah's face, tracing her features again, confirming. Then he smiled, a real genuine smile that lit up his entire face. Youreal, he spelled. THOUGHTDREAM, Sarah confirmed. NOTGOINGANYWHERE. A knock on the door. James entered, already dressed in an impeccable charcoal suit, his hair still damp from a shower. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, tension in his shoulders. "Good morning," he said. "I trust you both slept well after the incident." "Better than expected," Sarah admitted. She was acutely aware that she was in a borrowed robe, her hair a mess, no makeup. Meanwhile, James looked like he'd stepped out of a Forbes photo shoot. Ethan spelled WHOTALKINGYOURDAD, Sarah replied. Ethan immediately reached toward James's voice. James crossed the room and took his son's hands, attempting his clumsy version of communication. Ethan's frustration was immediate, pulling away, shaking his head. "He doesn't understand you," Sarah said gently. "Your touch patterns aren't clear enough. May I?" James stepped back, his jaw tight. Sarah could see the hurt in his eyes, the knowledge that his own son couldn't understand him. She took both of Ethan's hands. DADSAYSGOODMORNING, ASKSIFYOUSLEPTWELL. Ethan spelled back, TELLDADYES, BECAUSESARAHHERE. "He says yes, he slept well, because I was here." Sarah looked at James. "He needs consistency. The same person communicating the same way every time. It's like learning a language. You can't switch dialects constantly." "Then teach me," James said abruptly. "The manual tactile alphabet. I want to learn. It takes time. I don't care. I should have learned years ago. I hired specialist interpreters thinking they could bridge the gap. But you're right, it should be me." His voice cracked slightly. "Teach me how to talk to my son." Before Sarah could respond, Mrs. Hemsworth appeared in the doorway. "Breakfast is ready. And Mr. Thornton, your 8:30 meeting." "Cancel it," James said. Mrs. Hemsworth blinked. "Sir?" "Cancel the meeting. Reschedule for this afternoon. This morning, I'm learning to communicate with Ethan." He looked at Sarah. "If you're willing to teach me." "Of course," Sarah said. "But Ethan needs routine. He should eat first, get dressed." "I'll help with that," James interrupted. "Show me what to do." What followed was a masterclass in humility. James Thornton, billionaire CEO, tech genius, one of the most powerful men in America, fumbled through the basic tasks of caring for his son. Sarah watched as he tried to help Ethan select clothes from his closet, forgetting to let the boy feel the textures first. She guided his hands, showing him how to present choices through touch. "Let him feel both shirts," Sarah instructed. "This one is cotton, smooth. This one is wool, slightly rougher. He'll choose based on what he's comfortable with today." Ethan chose the cotton and James looked ridiculously proudly. In the bathroom, Sarah taught James how to spell out each step. WASHFACE, BRUSHTEETH, COMBHAIR. Simple commands that gave Ethan control and understanding. By the time they made it downstairs to the dining room, it was nearly 8 o'clock. Mrs. Hemsworth's disapproval was palpable, but James ignored her. The dining room was absurdly formal. A table that could seat 20, crystal chandeliers, oil paintings of stern-faced ancestors who probably weren't even James's relatives. Sarah felt like an imposter in her borrowed clothes. Designer jeans and a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than her old monthly rent. Ethan sat beside Sarah, his hand constantly seeking hers for reassurance. A young woman in a white uniform brought plates, scrambled eggs, bacon, fresh fruit, toast with various jams. "That's Maria," James said. "Head chef, best in Connecticut according to critics. Also makes a mean chocolate chip cookie." Ethan perked up at that. His hand spelled COOKIES. AFTERBREAKFAST, Sarah replied. IFYOUEATEGGS. Ethan made a face but picked up his fork. Sarah had to guide his hand to the plate, letting him map where each food item was located. "Eggs at 9 o'clock, bacon at 12, fruit at 3, she murmured, then spelled the locations more precisely into his free hand. James watched every interaction with laser focus, occasionally pulling out his phone to take notes. "So this alphabet," he said between bites. "How long to master it? Basic proficiency?" "A few weeks with daily practice. Fluency? Months. Maybe a year." Sarah sipped her coffee. Rich, perfect, probably $30 a pound. But Ethan already knows it well. Someone taught him, and he's sharp. Once you learn, you'll be able to communicate directly. Who taught him? James frowned. "I've had so many specialists cycle through. His previous interpreter, probably. The one before you fired them all 3 months ago." James's expression darkened. "I didn't fire everyone. I let people go after the kidnapping attempt because I couldn't trust anyone. The school, the therapists, the tutors. Someone leaked Ethan's schedule to whoever tried to take him." Sarah set down her fork. "You think it was an inside job?" "I know it was. The kidnappers knew exactly when Ethan would be in the school courtyard, which entrance was least monitored, how many seconds they'd have before security responded." James's voice was low, controlled fury. "Someone close to us sold that information." "Jesus," Sarah whispered. "Did you call the police?" "The FBI is investigating, but these things move slowly, and I wasn't willing to risk Ethan's safety waiting for bureaucracy." James looked at his son, who was carefully eating his eggs. "So I shut down his entire world. No more school, no more outside therapists, only people who live on this property full-time. That's why the house feels empty. Yes, I have a skeleton staff now. Mrs. Hemsworth, who's been with me since before Ethan was born. Maria and her husband Carlos, who handles grounds maintenance. Marcus and Deshawn for security. A cleaning service that's vetted and supervised, that's it." Sarah's stomach turned. "And now me. Someone you ran a background check on but have known for exactly 1 day." James met her eyes. "The difference is, you didn't apply for this job. You weren't sent by an agency. You weren't recommended by someone who might have ulterior motives. You were random chance, a flight attendant on a plane I chartered at the last minute because my regular pilot was sick." He paused. "Sometimes random is safer than vetted. Or I could be the perfect plant," Sarah pointed out. "Someone who engineered that random encounter. Could you have engineered turbulence? Made Ethan panic? Known exactly how to communicate with him?" James shook his head. "No. What happened yesterday was genuine. I've learned to recognize authenticity, Miss Mitchell. It's rare, but unmistakable." Ethan tugged Sarah's hand. "WATTALKINGABOUT. GROWNUPSTUFF, Sarah spelled. BORING. COOKIESNOW? Ethan asked hopefully. Sarah laughed despite the tension. FINISHFRUITFIRST. After breakfast, James led them to his study, a room lined floor to ceiling with books, dominated by a massive desk with 3 computer monitors. One wall was covered with whiteboards filled with equations and diagrams Sarah couldn't begin to understand. "I work from home most days now," James explained. "I can't leave Ethan alone, and I can't take him to the office. Too many variables." He cleared a space on a side table. "All right, teach me this alphabet." For the next 2 hours, Sarah drilled James on the manual tactile alphabet. Each letter had a specific formation, a particular way of touching the palm. Some were intuitive. O was a circle traced on the skin. Others were more complex. G required a specific finger position and movement. James was a quick study, his movements becoming more confident with each repetition. But there was frustration too, when his large hands fumbled over the smaller formations, when Ethan couldn't understand his attempts. It takes practice, Sarah reassured him. Muscle memory. You're doing well for day one. Ethan sat on the floor nearby, playing with what appeared to be a sophisticated tactile puzzle, raised shapes that fit together in specific patterns. Every few minutes, he'd reach out to confirm Sarah's presence, then return to his puzzle. Around 11, Marcus appeared in the doorway. Mr. Thornton, there's been a development. James's entire body tensed. What kind of development? Marcus glanced at Sarah, hesitating. She stays, James said firmly. What is it? FBI called. They've identified one of the men from the kidnapping attempt. Raymond Kowalski, former employee of Thornton Industries, fired 2 years ago for embezzlement. James went very still. Kowalski, he worked in R&D, had access to... He stopped himself, glancing at Ethan. He had access to what? Sarah asked quietly. Classified projects. Proprietary technology worth billions. James stood, pacing to the window. If he's involved, this isn't just about ransom. This is corporate espionage. Someone wants leverage over me, over my company. The FBI wants to interview the household staff, Marcus continued. Make sure no one else has connections to Kowalski. Do it, today. James turned back. And increase perimeter security. I want motion sensors on every inch of the property line. After Marcus left, silence hung heavy in the room. Ethan had stopped playing with his puzzle. His head was tilted, sensing the tension. He spelled to Sarah, D-A-D-S-C-A-R-E-D? Sarah looked at James, who was staring out the window at the grounds, his shoulders rigid. D-A-D-W-O-R-R-I-E-D, Sarah spelled back. B-U-T-K-E-E-P-I-N-G-Y-O-U-S-A-F-E. B-A-D-M-E-N-C-O-M-I-N-G. Ethan's hands trembled slightly. N-O-S-E-C-U-R-I-T-Y-V-E-R-Y-G-O-O-D. G-O-U-V-E-R-Y-S-A-F-E. But even as she spelled the reassurance, Sarah felt the weight of the lie, because the truth was she had no idea how safe they really were. James turned from the window. I need to make some calls. Sarah, can you stay with Ethan? There's a music room on the 3rd floor. He loves the piano. The door code is 1015, Catherine's birthday. Of course, Sarah said. As James left, already pulling out his phone, Sarah looked down at Ethan. The little boy who'd been so happy at breakfast now looked small and frightened. W-A-N-T-T-O-H-E-A-R-M-U-S-I-C? Sarah spelled. Ethan nodded eagerly, and Sarah led him upstairs, her hand firmly in his. The music room was breathtaking. Soundproofed walls covered in acoustic panels, a Steinway grand piano in the center, and various other instruments displayed like art pieces. But what caught Sarah's attention was the wall of photographs. Catherine Thornton. She'd been beautiful. Dark hair, warm brown eyes, smile that could light up a room. There were dozens of photos. Catherine pregnant, glowing. Catherine holding newborn Ethan. Catherine and James on their wedding day, looking impossibly young and happy. The last photo showed Catherine in a hospital bed, painfully thin, holding 2-year-old Ethan. She was smiling, but her eyes held the knowledge of someone who knew they were dying. M-O-M-M-Y, Ethan spelled, his hand finding Sarah's arm. He couldn't see the photos, but he knew where he was. He knew this room held her memory. Y-R-E-S, Sarah confirmed gently. Y-O-U-R-M-O-M-M-Y-L-O-V-E-D-Y-O-U-V-E-R-Y-M-U-C-H. Ethan moved to the piano with the confidence of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. He climbed onto the bench and placed his hands on the keys. Then he began to play. Sarah's breath caught. The music was hauntingly beautiful. Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, played with a sensitivity and skill that seemed impossible for a 9-year-old. Ethan's hands moved across the keys with absolute certainty, his face peaceful, transported. Sarah sank into a nearby chair, transfixed. This was how Ethan spoke when words weren't enough. This was his voice. When the piece ended, Ethan turned toward where he sensed Sarah. M-O-M-M-Y-T-E-A-C-H-M-E, he spelled. B-E-F-O-R-E-S-H-E-G-O-N-E. S-H-E-T-E-A-C-H-Y-O-U-W-E-L-L. Sarah replied, her throat tight. Y-O-U-P-L-A-Y-B-E-A-U-T-I-F-U-L. Y-O-U-L-I-K-E-M-U-S-I-C. Y-E-S-V-E-R-Y-M-U-C-H. I-P-L-A-Y-F-O-R-Y-O-U, Ethan decided, and launched into another piece. Something lighter this time, almost playful. Sarah sat back, letting the music wash over her, and thought about the strange twist her life had taken. 48 hours ago, she'd been serving drinks on commercial flights, wondering how she'd pay rent. Now she was in a mansion, listening to a prodigy play piano, caught up in a web of corporate espionage and threats she didn't fully understand. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "We know who you are, Sarah Mitchell. We know where you're from. We know why you're really there. Leave now, or you'll regret getting involved." Sarah's blood turned to ice. The phone buzzed again. This time a photo appeared, her old apartment building in Queens. Then another photo, her walking to the subway last week, taken from across the street. They'd been watching her, before any of this started, which meant this wasn't random at all. Sarah's hands shook as she stared at the photos on her phone. The angle of the shots was clear. Someone had been following her for days, maybe weeks, before she ever stepped foot on that private jet. The subway station near her apartment, the grocery store on the corner, her walking to work in her flight attendant uniform. How long had they been watching? Ethan stopped playing mid-phrase, his head turning toward her with uncanny precision. His hands immediately reached out, searching. "WHATWRONG," he spelled when he found her arm. "YOUSCARED, HEARTBEATFAST." Sarah forced herself to breathe normally. She couldn't let Ethan sense her panic. He felt everything, every tension in her muscles, every acceleration of her pulse. "IMOKAY," she spelled, the lie bitter on her fingertips. "JUSTSURPRISEDBYHOWBEAUTIFULYOUPLAY." Ethan wasn't convinced. His small face creased with worry. "TELLTRUTH. God, this kid was perceptive. Sarah's mind raced. She needed to tell James immediately. But she also needed to not terrify Ethan, who was already traumatized by the kidnapping attempt. "IGETYOURDAD," she spelled. "YOUSTAYHEREPLAYMOREMUSIC. ICOMEBACKVERYFAST. "NO," Ethan spelled frantically, grabbing her hand with both of his. "DONTLEAVE. "Ethan, I promise I'll be right back. 2 minutes." Sarah spoke aloud even though he couldn't hear, her voice shaking. She pulled out her phone with her free hand and texted James, "Need you in music room now. Emergency. Don't let Ethan know something's wrong." 30 seconds later, James burst through the door, Marcus right behind him. James's face was a mask of controlled panic, but when he saw Sarah and Ethan both physically unharmed, he stopped. "What happened?" His voice was carefully calm. Sarah handed him her phone, keeping her other hand connected to Ethan. "EEPPLAYING," she spelled to the boy. "DADHERE, EVERYTHING, Reluctantly, Ethan turned back to the piano and began playing again. Something by Chopin this time, melancholic and complex. James scrolled through the messages, his face going progressively paler. Marcus looked over his shoulder, his expression hardening. "These photos are from last week," Marcus said quietly. "Before you ever met Mr. Thornton." "I know," Sarah whispered. "They were watching me before the flight, before any of this. Which means this was planned," James finished. His jaw clenched so hard Sarah could see the muscle jumping. "They wanted you here." The implications crashed over Sarah like a wave. The turbulence, Ethan's panic, my random assignment to that flight. Her voice rose slightly. "None of it was random, was it?" "Quiet," Marcus warned, glancing at Ethan. "The boy." Sarah clamped her mouth shut, but her mind was screaming. She'd been manipulated, used. Every choice she thought she'd made freely had been orchestrated. James was already dialing. "Get me Director Chen at the FBI. Now. I don't care if he's in a meeting. This is priority." A pause. "Chen, it's Thornton. We have a situation. Someone's been surveilling my new employee for at least a week prior to her employment. I'm sending you photos and a threatening text." He rattled off technical details, his voice clipped and professional despite the fury radiating from him. When he ended the call, he looked at Sarah. His gray eyes were stormy, conflicted. "I need to ask you something, and I need complete honesty." "Of course. Before that flight, did anyone approach you? Offer you money? Ask questions about your schedule, your route assignments?" Sarah thought back, her mind sorting through the mundane details of her life before Sunday. "No, nothing out of the ordinary. I got the flight assignment from dispatch Saturday night, standard procedure." Who's your dispatcher? Tom Hendricks. He's been with the airline for 20 years. Sarah stopped. You think he's involved? I think everyone is suspect until proven otherwise. James paced the length of the music room, his movements predatory. Marcus, I want a complete investigation of everyone at that airline. Hendricks, the pilots, the other attendants. Someone gave them Sarah's information. On it, Marcus said, already typing on his phone. Ethan had stopped playing. His hands hovered over the keys, his head tilted in that listening posture. He could sense the adult tension even without hearing the words. Sarah went to him, placing her hand on his shoulder. ADULTSTALKING, BORINGSTUFF, YOUHUNGRY, LUNCHSOON, SOMETHINGBADHAPPENING. Ethan spelled stubbornly. IMNOTSTUPID. No, he certainly wasn't. YOURIGHT, Sarah spelled honestly. SOMETHINGHAPPENING. BUTWEKEEPYOUSAFE, PROMISE, YOUSAFETOO. Ethan's fingers trembled in hers. Sarah's throat tightened. YESISAFETOO. Another lie. She had no idea if she was safe, but she'd be damned if she'd terrify this child. James came over, his phone pressed to his ear. He was talking to someone else now, his voice low and intense. When he ended the call, he crouched beside Ethan's piano bench. Sarah needs to translate for me, he said, then waited as Sarah placed Ethan's hand on his throat so the boy could feel him speaking. It was the crude communication method they'd used before Sarah arrived, imprecise, but it let Ethan know his father was talking to him. Sarah spelled James's words, DADSAYSWEPLAYGAME, PRETENDHOUSEISCASTLE, WEALLSTAYINSIDETODAY, SAFEINCASTLE, LIKESTORY? Ethan asked. PRINCEINTOWER? YES. LIKESTORY. Ethan considered this, then nodded. He was scared. Sarah could feel it in the way his hand gripped hers, but he was trying to be brave. Marcus's phone rang. He stepped into the hallway, speaking in low tones. When he returned, his expression was grim. Perimeter breach, east fence line. Drone. Probably surveillance. We brought it down with the jammer, but someone's actively watching the property. James's face went pale. Lockdown protocol. Now. What happened next was choreographed chaos. Marcus spoke into his radio, and suddenly the mansion transformed. Metal shutters began descending over windows with mechanical whirs. Locks engaged throughout the house with heavy clicks. Somewhere an alarm system activated. Silent to Ethan, but Sarah could see the flashing lights embedded in the walls. WHATHAPPENING, Ethan spelled, his panic rising. PRACTICE, Sarah spelled quickly. LIKEFIREDRILL, JUSTPRACTICE, YOUSAFE. But James was ushering them toward the door, his hand on Sarah's elbow. Safe room, third floor, move. They rushed through hallways Sarah hadn't seen before. Marcus in front, James behind, Ethan clutching Sarah's hand. The boy's face was a mask of confusion and fear, his free hand reaching out to touch walls, trying to understand his environment through movement and vibration. The safe room was hidden behind a bookshelf in James's private office. Marcus pressed a concealed button, and the entire shelf swung inward, revealing a steel door with a biometric lock. James placed his palm on the scanner, and the door opened with a pneumatic hiss. Inside was a room about 20 feet square, lined with monitors showing every angle of the property. There were supplies, water, food, medical equipment, even a small bathroom in the corner. This wasn't just a panic room, this was a bunker designed for extended stays. "How long have you been planning for this?" Sarah asked as the door sealed behind them. "Since Catherine died," James said simply. He moved to the monitors, scanning the feeds. "She made me promise, if anything ever happened to her, I'd protect Ethan at all costs. No expense spared, no precaution too extreme." On one monitor, Sarah could see Marcus and Deshawn moving across the grounds, weapons drawn. On another, 2 FBI vehicles were pulling up to the front gate. Ethan tugged Sarah's hand. WHEREWE, SPECIALROOM, Sarah spelled. VERYSAFE, LIKEBUNKERINWARMOVIESWAR. Ethan's face crumpled. BADMENWANTHURTME? Sarah looked at James helplessly. How did you explain corporate espionage and kidnapping threats to a 9-year-old? James came over and placed his hands over Ethan's, attempting to communicate. His movements were still clumsy, but Sarah could see he was trying to form the letters she'd taught him that morning. DADPROTECTYOU, James spelled slowly. ALWAYS. Ethan threw his arms around his father's neck, and James held him tight, his eyes squeezed shut. Over the boy's shoulder, James mouthed to Sarah, "Thank you." For what? Sarah wondered. For being manipulated into this situation? For potentially putting them all in more danger? Her phone buzzed again. Another text from the unknown number. Smart move going to the safe room. But rooms can become tombs, Sarah. Ask yourself, who gave James Thornton the idea to hire you? Who made sure you'd be on that plane? Who's been playing both sides from the beginning? Sarah's blood turned to ice. She showed the message to James. His face went through a series of expressions. Confusion, realization, horror. "No," he whispered. "It can't be." Can't be what? The person who suggested I charter that specific plane, who said my regular pilot was sick, who rearranged my entire schedule so I'd have to fly commercial. James sank into a chair, his face gray. Robert, my head of operations, my friend for 15 years, the same Robert who ran my background check? The same one. James pulled out his phone with shaking hands, which means he's had access to everything. My schedule, Ethan's routine, security protocols. He looked up at Sarah. He knows about this safe room, he designed it. The implication hung in the air like poison gas. "We need to leave," Sarah said. "Now. If he knows about this room, then..." The monitors went dark. All 12 screens, simultaneously. In the sudden blackness, Ethan made a small whimpering sound. His world was always dark, but he could sense the sudden change in the adult's tension. James was already moving, pulling open a panel in the wall that revealed backup monitors. But before he could activate them, his phone rang. He looked at the screen, and his face hardened. "It's Robert." "Don't answer it," Sarah said. But James had already pressed accept. He put the phone on speaker. "James, thank God." Robert's voice was smooth, concerned. "I just heard about the perimeter breach. Are you and Ethan secure?" "We're in the safe room," James said carefully. "How did you know about the breach so fast?" "Mark has called me. Listen, I'm on my way there now with additional security. Former Secret Service guys, best in the business. But there's something you need to know about Sarah Mitchell." Sarah's heart hammered. "What about her?" James asked. "She's not who she says she is. Her brother, Danny, he didn't die of pneumonia complications. He committed suicide, James, in a psychiatric facility, and Sarah was there when it happened. There were questions about whether she..." "That's a lie," Sarah interrupted, her voice shaking with fury. "Danny had pneumonia. I was with him in the hospital. I held his hand when he died." "Are you sure?" Robert's voice was silky smooth. "Or is that what you've told yourself? I have medical records here that tell a different story. I'm sending them now." James's phone chimed with an incoming file. He opened it, his face unreadable. Sarah tried to see the screen, but James angled it away from her. "Those records are fake," she said desperately. "Danny was sick. He died of infection. I don't know what kind of game you're playing, Robert, but..." "The game," Robert interrupted, "is much bigger than you realize, Miss Mitchell. And you're not a player. You're a pawn. The question is, whose pawn are you? Mine or someone else's?" The line went dead. In the silence that followed, James stared at the documents on his phone. When he finally looked up at Sarah, his gray eyes were cold. "Tell me the truth," he said quietly. "All of it. Right now. Or I'm calling security to remove you from this property and from Ethan's life." Ethan, sensing the shift, grabbed Sarah's hand. "WHATWRONG? WHYDADANGRY? Sarah looked from the frightened boy to his father and realized she was standing at a crossroads. Whatever she said in the next 60 seconds would determine everything. Whether she stayed, whether she lived, whether any of them survived what was coming. And she had no idea what the truth even was anymore. Sarah's mind raced through every moment of Danny's final days, searching for any detail that might have been twisted into Robert's narrative. The sterile hospital room, the IV drip, the monitors beeping their steady rhythm until they didn't anymore. "My brother died in Mercy General Hospital in Queens on March 3, 2023. Sarah said, her voice steady despite the terror clawing at her chest. Room 447. Pneumonia complicated by sepsis. His attending physician was Dr. Patricia Chen. I was there for 72 hours straight. I didn't leave his side. James's fingers moved across his phone screen. And before that? Where was he living? With me. In my apartment. He'd been there since his accident in 2020. Sarah's throat tightened. After the car crash, he had traumatic brain injury, lost his vision completely, and had damage to his vocal cords from the ventilator. I took care of him for 3 years. Robert's documents say Daniel Mitchell was admitted to Briarwood Psychiatric Facility 6 months before his death, James said, his voice neutral but his eyes searching her face. That he was transferred from there to Mercy General only 48 hours before he died. That's a lie. But even as Sarah said it, something cold uncoiled in her stomach. There had been 6 months she didn't like to think about. 6 months when Danny had gotten worse. Not physically, but mentally. Depression so deep it scared her. Violent outbursts. Moments when he didn't recognize her. Sarah. James's voice was gentle now, which somehow made it worse. If you're protecting someone or if you're confused about what happened, I need to know. I have to put Ethan first. You understand that? Ethan was trembling, his hands frantically spelling SARAHSTAY, I'm not lying, Sarah insisted, but her voice wavered. She pulled out her own phone with shaking hands. I can prove it. I have photos from the hospital, texts with his doctor, bills. God, so many medical bills. She scrolled through her phone, but her hands were shaking so badly she could barely navigate. James took the phone from her gently and looked through her photo gallery. His expression shifted as he scrolled. Hospital rooms, Danny in bed with tubes and wires. Sarah's exhausted selfies taken at 3 a.m. during long vigils. These are dated, James murmured. March 2023. You're telling the truth about that. Of course I am, Sarah said. Why would I lie? Then explain this. James showed her Robert's documents. They looked official. Letterhead from Briarwood Psychiatric Facility, admission records, treatment notes, all bearing Danny's name and Sarah's as next of kin. But the dates were wrong. The diagnoses were wrong. And the final report, the one that made Sarah's blood run cold, stated that Daniel Mitchell had died by intentional overdose of prescribed medication while under psychiatric observation. Suicide watch had been implemented too late. I've never seen these documents before, Sarah whispered. This facility, Briarwood, I've never heard of it. Danny was never in psychiatric care. James was typing rapidly on his phone. Marcus, I need you to pull everything on Briarwood Psychiatric Facility, location, licensing, patient records, and get me Dr. Patricia Chen at Mercy General. He looked at Sarah. If your story checks out, these documents are elaborate forgeries. If they don't, they will, Sarah said firmly. But doubt had planted itself in her mind like a weed. Those 6 months when Danny had been so unstable, when social workers had come to evaluate their living situation, when someone had suggested institutional care and Sarah had refused, determined to keep her brother home. What if her memory was wrong? What if trauma had rewritten her own history? No. She remembered Danny's last words, tapped into her palm with weak fingers. THANKYOU. LOVEYOU. She remembered his final breath, the way his chest simply stopped moving. The sound of the flatline. Dr. Chen's hand on her shoulder as she sobbed. That was real. That had happened. The backup monitors flickered to life and Marcus's face appeared on screen. He was in the security office, surrounded by equipment. Boss, we've got a problem. The FBI agents who arrived? They're not FBI. Fake badges, stolen vehicle. Deshawn has them in custody, but they're a distraction, James finished. Where's the real threat? Unknown. I've got teams sweeping the property, but whoever's out there is good. No heat signatures, no movement on sensors. Marcus paused. And Robert just entered the property. He used his access code before I could change it. He's in the main house. James swore viciously. Ethan flinched at the vibration of his father's anger transmitted through their connected hands. DADSCARED, Ethan spelled to Sarah. ISCAREDTOO. IKNOW, Sarah replied, pulling him close. BUTWETOGETHER, WESAFETOGETHER. Can Robert access this room? Sarah asked. He designed the security protocols, James said grimly. He knows every override, every backdoor. He moved to a concealed panel and pulled out 2 items, a gun and a satellite phone. The sat phone can't be jammed. I'm calling the real FBI field office directly. While James made the call, Sarah's phone buzzed again. Another message from the unknown number. The psychiatric records are real, Sarah. You just don't remember. They gave you something to forget, to make you more compliant, more useful. Check your medical records from early 2023, January specifically. You'll find gaps. Sarah's hands went numb. She opened her phone's health app, scrolling back to January 2023. There were gaps, days where no steps were recorded, no data logged. She'd assumed it was a phone malfunction, but what if it wasn't? James, she said quietly, I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen before you make any decisions. He ended his call and turned to her, his face haggard. The FBI is 20 minutes out. Real agents this time, verified through multiple channels. Talk fast. 6 months before Danny died, he got worse. Much worse. Depression, paranoia, violent episodes. Social services got involved. I was so focused on keeping him out of institutions that Sarah's voice broke. I might have missed something. If someone did put him in psychiatric care without my knowledge, if they forged my consent somehow, I don't know how I wouldn't remember. Unless they drugged you too, James finished. His gray eyes had lost their coldness, replaced by something that looked like reluctant understanding. Rohypnol. Versed. There are dozens of substances that cause anterograde amnesia. You could have been manipulated, had weeks erased from your memory, and never known. The implications crashed over Sarah. But why? Why go through all that trouble for a nobody flight attendant? Because you're not a nobody. Robert's voice crackled through the safe room's intercom system. You're the key to everything, Sarah. You just don't remember. James grabbed the gun, pointing it at the intercom speaker as if that would help. Robert, what the hell is going on? What's going on? Robert said calmly. Is that I'm trying to save your life, you stubborn bastard. That technology you developed, the neural interface that could revolutionize brain-computer interaction, it's worth $30 billion, maybe more, and there are people who want it badly enough to kill for it. I know that, James snapped. That's why it's locked in a vault that even you can't access. But Ethan can access it. Robert's voice was quiet. Because Catherine made him the genetic key before she died. His biometrics are the only thing that can unlock that vault. His fingerprints, his retinal scan, even though he's blind, the scan still works, his DNA. Sarah's blood turned to ice. She looked at Ethan, who sat quietly in her arms, unable to hear the conversation that was determining his fate. You knew this, Robert continued. That's why you've been so paranoid about protecting him. But you made a mistake, James. You trusted me to help you. And I did help you. By finding the one person who could get close to Ethan without triggering your suspicions. Someone with the exact skills needed to communicate with him. Someone whose brother's convenient death would make her desperate for money and purpose. You killed Danny, Sarah whispered. You killed my brother. No, Robert said. Danny killed himself exactly as the psychiatric reports state. But I made sure you didn't remember his decline. I made sure you remembered him as a victim, not as someone who'd given up. I needed you functional, not broken. I needed you to be the perfect candidate for this job. James's hand was shaking. The kidnapping attempt 3 months ago. That was you. That was my competitors. Sloppy, desperate people who thought they could just take Ethan and force you to unlock the vault. I stopped them, James. I've been stopping threats for months while trying to find a better solution. Robert paused. Sarah was that solution. Someone Ethan would trust completely. Someone who could, when the time came, help convince him to unlock the vault willingly. I would never do that, Sarah said, her voice shaking with fury. I would never betray him. Not consciously, Robert agreed, but under the right circumstances, with the right motivation, anyone can be convinced to do anything, including you. The lights in the safe room flickered, then died completely, plunging them into absolute darkness. Ethan's world had always been dark, but Sarah's hadn't. She felt his small hand tighten around hers as she heard James moving in the blackness, presumably toward the emergency lights. But before he could reach them, the door to the safe room hissed open. Don't move, Robert's voice said from the doorway. I have night vision and a taser. I don't want to hurt anyone, but I will if necessary. The FBI is coming, James said. You'll never get away with this. The FBI will find you all safe and sound with a fascinating story about a corporate espionage attempt that I heroically foiled. Robert's footsteps moved closer. I'm not the villain here, James. I'm the only one who can protect you and Ethan from what's coming. But I need that technology. My employers need it. And one way or another, we're getting it tonight. Sarah felt movement in the darkness. James lunging toward Robert's voice. The sound of a struggle, a grunt of pain, something hitting the floor. Then the crack of a taser, and James's body hitting the ground hard. "Dad!" Sarah shouted, then remembered Ethan couldn't hear. She spelled frantically into his palm. S-T-A-Y-C-A-L-M. S-T-A-Y-W-I-T-H-M-E. Touching, Robert said. "You really have bonded with him, haven't you? That's going to make this easier. Ethan, your father is unconscious but alive. He'll be fine, but I need you to come with me now." Sarah will translate. Emergency lights flickered on, dim red bulbs that cast everything in hellish shadows. James was sprawled on the floor, unconscious but breathing. Robert stood in the doorway with a taser in one hand and a tablet in the other. "Tell him," Robert ordered Sarah. "Tell him we need to go to his father's laboratory. Tell him it's to save James's life." Sarah looked at Ethan's trusting face, felt his hand trembling in hers, and realized she had a choice to make. The wrong choice would doom them all. The right choice might save them, but she had no idea which was which. E-T-H-A-N, she began spelling, her mind racing ahead to find a way out of this nightmare. W-C-H-A-V-E-T-O. Gunshots erupted from somewhere in the house. Real ones, not tasers. Robert spun toward the sound, and in that split second of distraction, Sarah made her decision. She grabbed Ethan and ran, into the darkness of the mansion, away from Robert's shouts toward she didn't know what. But anywhere was better than here. Anywhere was better than betraying the boy who'd trusted her, even if it meant they both died trying. Behind them, Robert's voice echoed through the halls. "You can't hide, Sarah. I know every inch of this house, and when I find you, there won't be a second chance." Ethan clung to her, his silent screams vibrating through his chest. Sarah held him tight and kept running, her heart hammering, her mind blank except for one thought. Protect him. Whatever it takes. Protect him. Even if it cost her everything. Sarah's bare feet slapped against cold marble as she sprinted through the darkened mansion. Ethan's small body clutched against her chest. The red emergency lights cast long, twisted shadows that seemed to reach for them like grasping hands. Behind them, Robert's footsteps echoed. Methodical, unhurried. He knew she had nowhere to go. Ethan's hands frantically spelled against her collarbone. W-H-E-R-E-G-O-I-N-G. W-H-E-R-E-D-A-D. Sarah couldn't answer. Every second spent spelling was a second lost. She veered left down a corridor she didn't recognize, her lungs burning, her mind racing through impossible options. The gunshots had stopped. That was either very good or very bad. She rounded a corner and nearly collided with a figure in the darkness. Sarah's scream died in her throat as she recognized Mrs. Hemsworth, the housekeeper. The older woman's face was pale, her gray dress torn at the shoulder. "Miss Mitchell," Mrs. Hemsworth gasped. "Thank God. Come with me. Quickly. How do I know I can trust you?" Sarah's voice shook. "Because I've been protecting this family since before that boy was born." Mrs. Hemsworth grabbed Sarah's arm. "Robert isn't working alone. There are 3 others in the house. Marcus and Deshawn are holding them off, but we need to get Ethan somewhere safe until the real FBI arrives." Another burst of gunfire, closer this time. Ethan buried his face against Sarah's shoulder, his whole body trembling. "Where?" Sarah demanded. "The greenhouse. There's a panic tunnel underneath that leads to the guest house. Robert doesn't know about it. Only Mr. Thornton and I do. Catherine insisted on it before she died, a secret escape route." Mrs. Hemsworth was already moving, her sensible shoes silent on the floor. "This way." Sarah hesitated for only a second, then followed. What choice did she have? They moved through the mansion's back corridors, servant passages that Sarah hadn't known existed. Mrs. Hemsworth navigated by feel and memory, her hand trailing along the wall. Through the walls they could hear shouts, running footsteps, the crash of something heavy breaking. "What does Robert want?" Sarah whispered as they descended a narrow staircase. "The same thing everyone wants. Power, money, control." Mrs. Hemsworth pushed open a door that led to a mudroom. "Mr. Thornton's neural interface technology could change the world. Brain-computer integration that could restore communication to people like Ethan, give mobility to paralyzed patients, treat Alzheimer's, depression, PTSD. It's revolutionary. Then why not just sell it? Why all this? Because James won't sell to the highest bidder. He wants it properly tested, ethically deployed, accessible to everyone regardless of income." Mrs. Hemsworth grabbed flashlights from a drawer and handed one to Sarah. That makes him a liability to certain people. People who see a $30 billion monopoly slipping through their fingers. They exited into the November night. The cold hit Sarah like a slap. She was still wearing only the jeans and sweater from that morning, no shoes, no coat. Ethan was dressed even lighter in his cotton shirt and pants. The greenhouse loomed ahead, a glass structure that glittered like a jewel box in the security lights. Mrs. Hemsworth unlocked a side door with a key from her pocket, and they slipped inside. The temperature rose immediately, humid, earthy, thick with the smell of growing things. Sarah had expected flowers, but instead found rows of vegetables, herbs, fruit trees in large pots. A survival garden. Catherine planned for everything, Mrs. Hemsworth murmured, leading them between the rows. She knew James had made powerful enemies. She knew they'd eventually come for what he'd built. At the back of the greenhouse, behind a large potting table, Mrs. Hemsworth knelt and brushed aside loose soil to reveal a metal handle. She pulled, and a trapdoor lifted, exposing a concrete staircase leading down into darkness. The tunnel is 50 yards long, comes up in the guest house basement. From there you can access the garage. Take one of the cars and drive until you're miles away. Don't stop for anything. Mrs. Hemsworth pressed a set of car keys into Sarah's hand. The black Range Rover. It's fueled and ready. Sarah stared at the keys, then at the tunnel. What about James? I can't just leave him unconscious in that safe room. Marcus will get him out. That's his job. Mrs. Hemsworth's face softened. Your job is Ethan. That's what Mr. Thornton hired you for. That's what you promised. Ethan tugged Sarah's sleeve. His hands found her face in the darkness, then spelled WHATHAPPENING, Sarah knelt down, setting the flashlight aside so she could use both hands. BADMENINHOUSE, WELEAVING, WEBESAFESOON, DADCOMING. Sarah's throat closed. YES, DADCOMINGLATER, FIRSTWEGO, Ethan's spelling was firm, decisive. NOTLEAVE DAD FAMILYSTAYTOGETHER. Ethan, we don't have time, Sarah began aloud, then caught herself. She spelled WEHAVETOGONOW KEEPYOUSAFE INOTSAFEIFDADDIE. Ethan's face was set with stubborn determination. ISTAYHELPDAD. Miss Mitchell, we're running out of time. Mrs. Hemsworth was looking toward the greenhouse door, her face tense. They'll check here eventually. But Sarah understood something in that moment, looking at Ethan's resolute face. This 9-year-old boy had spent his entire life being protected, sheltered, kept safe in a bubble of privilege and isolation. He was blind and mute, but he wasn't helpless. And he wasn't going to abandon his father. Neither was she. We're not running, Sarah said, standing up. We're going back. Mrs. Hemsworth's eyes widened. That's suicide. Maybe. But Ethan's right, we don't leave family behind. Sarah picked up the flashlight. Where's the laboratory? The one with the vault Robert wants? Sub-basement. Accessible only through Mr. Thornton's study. Mrs. Hemsworth shook her head. You can't possibly think. Robert said Ethan is the key to the vault, his biometrics. Which means Robert needs him alive and cooperative. Sarah's mind was racing now, pieces clicking together. He won't hurt Ethan. He can't. But he thinks I'll help him because I'm just a pawn who doesn't remember being programmed. Were you? Programmed? Mrs. Hemsworth asked quietly. Sarah thought about the gaps in her memory, the psychiatric records she'd never seen, Danny's final months that felt fuzzy and distant like a dream half remembered. I don't know, she admitted. Maybe. But if I was, it didn't work. Because I'd die before I let anyone hurt this kid. Ethan's hand found hers and squeezed. He couldn't hear her words, but he could feel her resolve transmitted through her grip. Mrs. Hemsworth studied Sarah for a long moment, then nodded. All right. If you're going back, you'll need leverage. Something Robert wants more than the vault access. Like what? Like this. Mrs. Hemsworth went to one of the potted fruit trees and dug into the soil with her bare hands. She pulled out a waterproof container and opened it, revealing a thumb drive, backup of all of Mr. Thornton's research. Every algorithm, every prototype design, every test result. Catherine gave it to me the week before she died. She said if anything ever happened to James, I should make sure this survived. Why are you giving it to me? Because you're the only one Ethan trusts completely. And because I'm 73 years old with arthritis and a bad hip, I can't do what needs to be done. Mrs. Hemsworth pressed the thumb drive into Sarah's palm. But you can. Sarah pocketed the drive, her heart hammering. I need to get back to the safe room. Is there another way besides through the main house? Service elevator. Runs from the kitchen to the 3rd floor. Opens 10 feet from Mr. Thornton's study. Mrs. Hemsworth pulled out her phone. I'll text Marcus. Let him know you're coming and that you have the backup drive. That'll bring the real FBI running faster than anything else. As Mrs. Hemsworth typed, Sarah knelt beside Ethan again. WEGOBACKFORDAD BUTYOUDOEXACTLYWHATISAY UNDERSTAND YES, Ethan spelled. IBRAVE LIKEMOM YES LIKEYOURMOM. They made it back to the house without incident. The service entrance was unlocked. Mrs. Hemsworth's key worked on every door. Inside, the sounds of conflict had diminished. Either the fighting was over, or it had moved to another part of the mansion. The service elevator was cramped, barely big enough for 2 people. Sarah held Ethan close as it lurched upward with grinding mechanical sounds that seemed impossibly loud in the silence. When the doors opened on the 3rd floor, Sarah peered out carefully. The corridor was empty, lit by those eerie red emergency lights. To the left, she could see the door to James's study standing open. She spelled to Ethan, VERYQUIETNOW, HOLDMYHAND, They crept down the hallway. Sarah could hear voices from inside the study. Robert's smooth baritone and another voice she didn't recognize. Male, younger, with an edge of impatience. Don't care about your timeline, the unknown man was saying. The buyers want the technology now, not next week, not when it's convenient now. And they'll get it, Robert replied. But Thornton's still unconscious and the woman ran off with the kid. Give me an hour to find them. You said this would be clean, in and out. Instead, we've got security crawling everywhere and real FBI on the way. The FBI won't find anything. I'll spin this as a kidnapping attempt that we foiled. Thornton will be grateful. Everything goes back to normal, except we have what we need. Sarah edged closer to the doorway, trying to see inside. The study looked the same as that morning. Bookshelves, whiteboards, James's massive desk. But the bookshelf that concealed the safe room entrance was wide open, revealing the steel door beyond. And slumped against the desk, still unconscious, was James. Sarah's heart clenched. He looked so vulnerable like that, his usual armor of control and composure stripped away. Blood trickled from a cut on his temple where he must have hit his head when he fell. What about the housekeeper? The unknown man asked. She wasn't supposed to be here tonight. Mrs. Hemsworth is hardly a threat. She's probably hiding in her quarters waiting for this to be over. Robert checked his watch. Look, give me 30 minutes. I know where Sarah would take Ethan. There's a panic tunnel to the guest house. I'll intercept them there. But he was wrong. They weren't at the guest house. They were 10 feet away, and Sarah had the backup drive in her pocket. She pulled out her phone and texted Marcus. 3rd floor study. Robert plus 1 other. James unconscious. Send help. The reply came immediately. FBI 5 mins out. Deshawn securing perimeter. Hold position. 5 minutes. She just had to keep Ethan safe for 5 more minutes. But then Ethan sneezed. It was a small sound. Almost nothing. But in the silence of the corridor, it might as well have been a gunshot. The voices in the study stopped. Footsteps approached the door. Sarah grabbed Ethan and dove into the nearest room, a linen closet. She pulled the door almost shut, leaving just a crack to see through, and held Ethan tight against her chest. She spelled into his palm, VERYQUIETDONTMOVE. Robert appeared in the corridor, a gun now in his hand. Sarah, I know you're here, I heard you. Sarah's hand covered Ethan's mouth, though he couldn't make sound anyway. Her own breathing seemed impossibly loud. This is pointless. Robert continued, moving slowly down the hall. You can't win. Even if the FBI arrests me, I have lawyers, connections. I'll be out in hours. But you're nobody. A pawn who doesn't even remember being played. He was getting closer. 10 feet, 8 feet, 6 feet. I know you think you're protecting Ethan, Robert said. But from what? His father's technology could save millions of lives. All those people with locked-in syndrome, paralysis, brain injuries, they could be helped. Isn't that worth something? 4 feet. Sarah could see his shoes through the crack in the door. Your brother Danny could have been helped if this technology had existed 3 years ago. He could have communicated fully, lived independently. Don't you want that for others like him? 2 feet. Sarah's grip on Ethan tightened. Then, the boy was perfectly still, perfectly silent, understanding on some instinctive level that their lives depended on it. Robert's hand reached for the closet door handle, and then gunfire erupted from downstairs. Multiple weapons, shouted commands, the unmistakable authority of law enforcement conducting a raid. FBI, drop your weapons. Robert spun away from the closet and ran back toward the study. Sarah heard him shouting, "Get Thornton to the vault, now! It's our only leverage." Sarah burst from the closet and ran after him. She couldn't let them take James downstairs, couldn't let them use him as a hostage. She rounded the corner into the study just as the unknown man was hauling James upright, a gun pressed to his temple. James was semi-conscious now, his eyes unfocused, blood still dripping from the cut on his head. "Sarah, go," James slurred. "Get Ethan out." But Sarah didn't run. Instead, she stepped fully into the room. Ethan's hand clutched in hers and held up the thumb drive. "Looking for this?" she said. "The backup of all the research. Everything you need. Let James go and you can have it." Robert's eyes locked onto the drive and Sarah saw raw hunger there. "Where did you get that? Does it matter? You want the technology? Here it is. But not until James and Ethan are safe. You're in no position to negotiate," the unknown man said, pressing the gun harder against James's skull. "Give us the drive, or I paint the walls with his brain." Ethan's hands spelled frantically. WHATHAPPENING-TELLME. Sarah couldn't spell back. She needed both hands free, but she squeezed Ethan's hand 3 times, their emergency signal. "Danger. Stay calm. Trust me." "The FBI is already in the house," Sarah said, her voice steadier than she felt. "You're not getting out of here. But if you let them go, if you cooperate, maybe you get a deal. Maybe you don't spend the rest of your life in prison." "We're not going to prison," Robert said, but his voice had lost its smooth confidence. He was calculating, weighing options. Footsteps thundered up the stairs. Men in tactical gear appeared in the doorway. Real FBI this time, with FBI emblazoned across their vests. Weapons raised. "Drop the weapon, now!" Everything happened at once. The unknown man shoved James forward and raised his gun toward the FBI agents. Multiple shots fired. The man went down hard, blood blooming across his chest. Robert lunged for Sarah, grabbing for the thumb drive. She threw it as hard as she could toward the FBI agents, then pushed Ethan behind her, shielding him with her body. Robert's hand closed on her throat. "You stupid girl. You've ruined everything." Sarah couldn't breathe. Black spots danced in her vision, but through the roaring in her ears she heard James's voice, stronger now. "Robert, let her go." The pressure on her throat increased for one terrible second. Then Robert released her and raised his hands as FBI agents swarmed the room. Sarah collapsed to her knees, gasping, as Robert was forced to the ground and handcuffed. Ethan's hands found her immediately, spelling desperately, "YOUOKAY-SARAHOKAY-YES." She spelled back, her hands shaking. "WESAFENOWALLSAFE." James crawled over to them, his movements unsteady. He pulled both Sarah and Ethan into his arms, holding them so tightly Sarah could barely breathe. But this time, she didn't mind. "Thank you," James whispered into her hair. "Thank you for saving him, for saving us." Ethan's hands found his father's face, confirming his presence, then found Sarah's. He spelled FAMILY, WEFAMILY. And sitting there on the floor of that ransacked study, surrounded by FBI agents and the wreckage of Robert's betrayal, Sarah realized something profound. She'd spent 3 years mourning the family she'd lost. But maybe, just maybe, she'd found a new one. Not perfect, not safe, but real, and worth fighting for. Epilogue. 6 months later, the late April sunshine streamed through the windows of what Sarah still thought of as the music room, though they'd repurposed it months ago. The photographs of Catherine remained on the walls. James said they should stay, that she was still part of this family, but now they shared space with new photos. Sarah and Ethan at the piano, the 3 of them at Christmas. Marcus and Deshawn teaching Ethan self-defense moves adapted for someone who couldn't see. Sarah sat cross-legged on the floor, helping Ethan assemble a complex tactile model of the solar system. Each planet had a different texture, a different size, and raised markers indicating their positions relative to each other. "THISONEJUPITER, Ethan asked, his fingers exploring a large sphere covered in ridges. "YES. BIGGESTPLANET. BIGGERTHANEARTH. MUCHBIGGER. YOUCOULDFIT. 1300EARTHS. INSIDEJUPITER. Ethan's face lit up with wonder. At 10 years old now, he was taller, his features losing their childish roundness. But his curiosity, his fierce intelligence, his capacity for joy, those remained constant. James appeared in the doorway, and Sarah's heart did its usual complicated flip. Over the past 6 months, their relationship had shifted in ways she was still processing. He'd been true to his word, paying off her debts, providing a home, giving her purpose. But somewhere along the way, it had become more than a job. The way he looked at her when Ethan wasn't aware, the way his hand would brush hers as they worked together, teaching Ethan new concepts. The conversations late at night, after Ethan was asleep, where they'd share their fears and hopes. Neither of them had addressed it directly. The trauma of Robert's betrayal, the ongoing FBI investigation, the media circus that had followed, it hadn't seemed like the right time. But maybe now. "There's someone here to see you," James said. His expression was carefully neutral, which meant whatever this was, it was important. Dr. Patricia Chen walked in and Sarah's breath caught. She hadn't seen Danny's doctor since his funeral. "WHOHERE?" Ethan asked, sensing the shift in energy. "DOCTORFRIEND-KEEPPLAYING." Reluctantly, Ethan returned to his planets while Sarah stood to greet Dr. Chen. "Sarah," Dr. Chen said warmly, "you look well, better than when I last saw you." "Thank you. I didn't expect to see you again. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't important." Dr. Chen glanced at James, who nodded encouragingly. "The FBI contacted me as part of their investigation into Robert Kensington. They had questions about Daniel's medical records." Sarah's stomach clenched. "And the psychiatric records Robert presented were forgeries. Sophisticated ones, but fake. Daniel was never at Briarwood Psychiatric Facility." Dr. Chen pulled out a folder. "But he was moved from your apartment to a hospice facility for his final 6 months. You signed the admission papers." "I don't remember that," Sarah whispered. "Because you were drugged." "Repeatedly. The hospice staff have been arrested. They were being paid to keep you sedated during visits, to make you compliant and confused. They'd give you versed before you arrived, so you'd be present but unable to form new memories. Then they'd tell you later that you'd visited, show you photos they'd staged." "Doctor," Chen's voice was gentle, "you thought you were taking care of Danny at home, but really, he was in their facility being used as leverage to control you." "Leverage for what?" "For this." Dr. Chen gestured around the mansion. "Robert had been planning this for over a year. He researched caregivers of deafblind patients looking for someone with your exact skill set and a desperate financial situation. When he found you, he orchestrated everything, getting your brother into that facility, manipulating your memories, ensuring you'd be available and vulnerable when James needed a companion for Ethan." Sarah sank into a chair. "So I was right. I was programmed. Partially. But here's what Robert didn't count on. Your genuine love for your brother. Your authentic compassion. Your real strength." Dr. Chen smiled. "You can't fake that. And that's what saved Ethan and James. Not the skills Robert cultivated in you, but the person you actually are." James came and knelt beside Sarah's chair. "The FBI found Robert's files. He'd been tracking you for 18 months, Sarah. He chose you specifically, but the manipulation failed because you're stronger than he ever understood." Tears streamed down Sarah's face. Grief for Danny, fury at Robert, relief at finally understanding. SARAHSAD. Ethan had abandoned his planets and made his way over, his hands finding her face and feeling the tears. "LITTLEBITSAD, Sarah admitted. BUTALSOHAPPY. WHYHAPPYANDSAD. How to explain this to a 10-year-old? SADBECAUSEMISSMYBROTHER, Sarah spelled. HAPPYBECAUSEFOUNDYOUANDDAD. Ethan considered this, then spelled YOULOVEMYDAD. Sarah's hands froze. She looked at James, whose gray eyes had widened. WHAT? M-A-K-E-S-Y-O-U-T-H-I-N-K-T-H-A-T. Sarah spelled carefully. Heartbeatchangenear. Ethan spelled matter-of-factly. Andhisheartbeatchangenear. Sammommmyanddaddynstories. Dr. Chen chuckled. Kids. They see everything. James stood and held out his hand to Sarah. Can we talk? Privately. Sarah let him lead her out to the balcony overlooking the grounds. The gardens were in full spring bloom, the air sweet with the scent of flowers. Down below, Marcus was teaching a self-defense class to local kids. James had opened the estate twice a week for community programs, his way of giving back after everything that had happened. So, James said, leaning against the railing, apparently we're not as subtle as we thought. Apparently not. Sarah's heart was hammering. Sarah, James stopped, ran his hand through his hair. For a man who commanded billion-dollar companies, he suddenly looked remarkably uncertain. When I hired you, it was for Ethan, to help him communicate, to give him what I couldn't, but you've given me something too. What's that? Hope, the belief that maybe I could have more than just work and worry, that maybe Ethan could have more than just survival. James turned to face her fully. You've become essential to this family, to me, and I don't want that to be just professional anymore. Sarah's breath caught. James, I don't know if I can trust what I feel. So much of the past year was manipulated, orchestrated. What if our feelings aren't real? James finished. He took her hands in his and the touch sent electricity through her. I've thought about that. A lot. But then I remember that no one manipulated the way you risked your life for Ethan. No one orchestrated the way you make him laugh, or the way you've helped me become a better father. And no one programmed the way I feel when I see you with him, or the way my day doesn't feel complete until I've talked to you. He squeezed her hands gently. I'm not asking you to decide anything today. I know there's still healing to do, trust to rebuild. But when you're ready, if you're ready, I'd like to explore this. Us. Whatever this could be. Sarah looked at this man who'd been a stranger 6 months ago, and was now, what? Her employer? Her friend? Something more? I'm not Catherine, she said quietly. I can never replace her. I'm not asking you to. Catherine will always be part of our lives, part of Ethan's history, but she'd want us to be happy. She'd want Ethan to have a complete family. James's voice dropped. She'd like you, I think. Your strength, your compassion, your terrible habit of sacrificing yourself for others. Sarah laughed despite herself. That's not a good quality. It is when you're protecting the people you love. The word hung between them. Love. Was that what this was? Sarah thought about Ethan's question. YOULOVEMYDAD. Her heart did beat faster when James was near. She did think about him constantly. She did want to make him smile, to ease the worry lines from his forehead, to share in his victories and shoulder his burdens. Maybe it was too soon. Maybe it was complicated. Maybe there were 1,000 reasons to be cautious. But maybe, just maybe, life was too short for maybes. I'm ready, Sarah said. Not for anything dramatic or rushed, but for exploring. Us. Whatever this is. James's smile transformed his entire face, the way it had that first day on the plane. Yeah? Yeah. He leaned in slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. When his lips met hers, it was gentle, careful, full of promise. From inside the music room, they heard Ethan clapping enthusiastically. They broke apart, laughing. You think he knows? Sarah asked. He knows everything, James said. We've been trying to keep this quiet for months, and he's been way ahead of us the whole time. They returned inside to find Ethan standing with his hands on his hips, looking remarkably smug for a kid who couldn't see or speak. ABOUTTIME. He spelled to Sarah. YOUBOTHSLOWHOWLONGHAVEYOUKNOWN, Sarah asked. MONTHS, Ethan replied. EVERYONEKNOWS. EVENMARCUSBETMONEYONWHENYOUKISS. There's a betting pool? James asked, scandalized. Sarah translated, and Ethan nodded vigorously. MARCUSWINS. SAIDBEFOREMAY. Dr. Chen was laughing so hard she had tears in her eyes. I should go, let you all process this development. After she left, the three of them sat together on the floor with Ethan's solar system model. James attempted to spell to his son, His proficiency had improved dramatically over the past months, and Ethan patiently corrected his father's clumsy letter formations. Dadgettingbetter, Ethan spelled to Sarah. MaybeinTwoyearshegood. Sarah laughed and relayed this to James, who mock glared at his son. 2 years? I'll have you know I'm an extremely fast learner. Notathis. Ethan spelled with what could only be described as sass. They spent the afternoon like that, laughing, learning, building their strange little solar system. And as Sarah watched James struggle with the tactile alphabet while Ethan patiently coached him, she realized something profound. This wasn't the life she'd planned. It wasn't the life she'd expected when she stepped onto that plane 6 months ago. But it was hers. Real, complicated, sometimes scary, often beautiful. A family built not from blood or obligation, but from choice and commitment and love. The kind of family worth fighting for. The kind of family worth everything. Outside, the April sun climbed higher in the sky, painting the world in shades of gold and green. Inside the mansion that no longer felt empty, 3 people sat together in the light, spelling hope and healing and home into each other's hands. And in the corner, on the wall of photographs, Catherine Thornton seemed to smile.